assignment for week number 1 in digital imaging is to make an image or find an image that is black and white, and then you're going to paint over it with the layers and the paintbrush tools in Photoshop. So what I'm going to address in this video is how do you get an image black and white if it's not already black and white. So obviously the first thing you could do is simply find an image that is black and white. So for example, if I look for tree, black and white, and here I find an image of a tree that's black and white, and as I did in the other video, I can just right click on it and say copy image, go back over to Photoshop. This time I'm going to use keyboard shortcuts, Control N to create a new document. It's at the correct size. Hit enter to say OK, Control V as in Victor to paste it in. Alright, and now I could start with that one. Let's look at the one that I had already copied in, though, that is in color. So I'm going to actually go over, I think, 4 different methods of how you can convert your image into black and white. If we look up here in the tabs, we see that I have some information about this image. It's called Untitled 5. I'm viewing it at 100%. I'm on layer 1, which I can see down here in the layers panel, and it says RGB. That means it's in the color mode RGB. If I go over to Image from the main menu, Mode, I could switch it to grayscale. It's going to ask me, do I want to flatten it? So do I want to essentially put these 2 layers as one layer? I can choose to do that. I could choose to get out of this, say, hey, I don't like this option at all, just cancel. Or I could choose to go ahead and say don't flatten. I'm going to just say don't flatten. And so now my image is black and white. Now here's the problem. I go over to my paintbrush, and I'm going to go over this in more details in the next video about how to change your colors, but I can only choose black and white color. So I just chose kind of like a rust color, and it comes out as gray. That's because this image is in a grayscale mode. No problem. I can put it back to a color mode, and I can start painting in color, and it's not going to bring back the color. So I'm going to go back up to Image, Mode, and switch it back to RGB. It gives me the same options again. Again, I'm going to say don't flatten, but you could say flatten, it doesn't matter. And now here's my image. I discard all the color, so it still doesn't have it, but now it's in the RGB mode, so now I could paint on it in color. And just to show you the history example, the history panel, which I have open here, and remember, if you don't see that, look for this icon in your second column of docked icons here. Click on it, and if you don't see this icon here, then go up under Window and look for history. So here in the history panel, I can click back and let's say, oh, I don't like that brush tool step that I just did. I'm just going to click back to the state I was in before I did that. And if I decide, actually, I don't like any of the stuff I did, I can keep clicking back to get back to my original image. But now the moment I do the next step, for example, I'm going to paint again. Watch what's going to happen. See how these states are kind of grayed out? I'm going to paint, and now they're gone. So when you go back in your history panel and then you start again, you do delete everything that you had just kind of like skipped backwards on. And I'm going to just get rid of that. Okay, so that was going through one way. I changed the mode to grayscale, and then I changed it back to RGB, and that discarded the color. Other ways you could do it. Again, under Image, this time I'm going to go to Adjustments, and I'm going to create what's called an image adjustment. This is destructive editing, but that's okay. In the beginning, we start out with destructive editing, and as we learn more Photoshop, we get to non-destructive. Under Adjustments, there is an adjustment called black and white, and as soon as I hit that, my image now becomes black and white. You can play around here. There's some different defaults. So if I want, for example, maximum white, you can see how it kind of changes it. It's more like on the lighter grayscale to white. Maximum black, it makes it very dark. As a red filter. So you can go through these if you'd like. This is another method that you can use. I didn't have to change my color mode. It stayed in RGB. And I could click OK. And now I could continue with my next step, which will be adding layers and painting on it. Again, I'm going to go through the history panel and step backwards because I want to show you a different method. So I'm stepping back to the state when I just pasted my image in. I can do almost the exact same way, and I'm really jumping ahead here, but I just want to point it out in a non-destructive manner. I'm going to go to my layers panel, and there are all of these different icons on the layers panel, many of which are you could find under layers, and also some of the adjustments here. And I'm going to go to the one that I call the cookie, the black and white cookie, because it looks like a black and white cookie to me for some reason. It's a circle, it's half black, half white. I'm going to click on that, and here I look for the exact same black and white option, and I get the same effect. And notice I have the same panel, it's just now as a pop-out panel, and this is our first introduction to layers. This effect is on its own layer. So I could do the same thing. Let's say I really like the maximum white. I could get that, and I could dock this once I'm done with this properties panel. I don't need to have it here anymore, or you could keep it there. And so this black and white, the effect of making it black and white is something that's on its own layer. If I click on this eyeball, I can see that my original layer is here underneath untouched, but it gives me the desired effect I want, and at this point I could continue on with the project. So you have to do this for 2 different images. I encourage you to explore these different methods, even if the first method is simply opening up an image that's already black and white, and for the second image, choose one of these other methods just as a great way to start to learn Photoshop, is go around and explore the different options.